Hi, I'm Christine Lane, a partner in our tax practice here at Crowell and Mooring. I also co-lead our practice and head the transactional tax practice.
And I'm Carina Federico. I'm a partner in the tax group as well, and I focus on tax controversy matters.
Today we want to talk about recent developments in the Inflation Reduction Act and specifically the monetization of tax credits. It used to be the case that the only way to monetize energy tax credits was through the use of very complex tax equity financing structures. While those structures still exist today, we're finding that the market is shifting away from those and really focusing on these new rules and proposed regulations that really free up the number of investors who can monetize and take advantage of monetization and transferability of these credits. As it stands now, there are numerous credits that now can be transferred without these complex structures.
Yeah, and the Treasury and IRS issued proposed regulations back in June of 2023 and then held a hearing in August of 2023. And all of that got great interest from the tax community. Many comments were submitted. A lot of people participated in the hearing. And now we're just waiting for the final regulations to be released. So there's technical parts of the transferability regime that might change with these new final regulations.
And you made the point that the hearing, there are a lot of people were really focused on the hearing. There's a lot of attention on these rules, and in fact, numerous folks spoke at this hearing in addition to submitting comments. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the themes that we heard in that hearing?
Under the proposed rules, credit sellers must transfer both the underlying base credit portion as well as the bonus credit portion. So, for example, if you transfer the entire base credit to a buyer, you have to also sell the entire bonus credit. And if you sell a proportion of that base credit, you have to sell the same proportion of any associated bonus credit to the same buyer.
So that sounds like a lot. That sounds very complex. Can we unpack that a little bit? And in particular, when we talk about the bonus credits, what are we talking about specifically?
Sure. So let's say you have a base credit and then you have a domestic content or prevailing wage adder on top of that. You're going to sell 1/10, let's say, of your credit to one buyer. So you have to then sell 1/10 of the base credit, 1/10 of the domestic content credit, and then 1/10 of the prevailing wage credit to that same buyer in order to comply with the regs as currently written. Now, some commentators have asked that that be changed, whereby you could then sell the base credit to one buyer and the bonus credits like domestic content or prevailing wage to another buyer. But currently, as the rules are written, that's not permitted.
And it would seem if Treasury and the IRS considered separating out the adder credit from the base credit, that could really simplify the approach to these transactions to monetize these energy tax credits. For example, on due diligence and the due diligence projects that we're seeing, you would have to diligence, for example, the domestic content adder portion as well as the base credit. And separating those out can really simplify those diligence work streams.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think based on the hearing that Treasury held, the Treasury and IRS officials asked some questions on this exact topic and also asked the commentator who was presenting on this issue to submit additional comments. So we'll see if something changes when Treasury and IRS issue their final regulations on transferability.
It'll definitely be interesting to see what happens when those rules are finalized. And in terms of timing, what do you think? Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be next month?
So I think that IRS and Treasury were really focused on getting the pre-filing registration portal up and running by the end of 2023. So it's a little unclear when they're going to get out the transferability final regulations. I know that they're diligently working on it and taking into account a lot of the comments that were made in the hearing, comments and additional comments that were submitted. So I'd expect to see it sometime this year, but I'm not sure we really know the exact timing, and I don't think they've said when they're going to release those yet.
That makes sense. And in terms of, I believe recently we heard there are a number of folks who've signed up on the portal. Rough numbers. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I think there was a report that there were already a couple of weeks ago, and keeping in mind the portal just came up and was up and running at the end of December. Over 1,000 pre-filing registrations were already submitted, and we're also starting to see a lot of these platforms that are pairing buyers and sellers together, and broker-dealer platforms up and running as well. So I'd expect that number to continue to increase.
And in terms of the user guide, just picking up on some of the key points that we're hearing and clients have been asking us, what's the basic process there? And what we understand is sellers only need to register once per year. And they can register for multiple projects. And to the extent that additions or revisions are needed to information that's originally inputted on that portal, they're free to make those changes. And anything else you'd add to that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I would also add the IRS has recommended registering early. And the reason for that is that they've said file at least 120 days before filing your return, because the IRS is going to actually review those pre-filing registrations before they provide a registration number. They're going to review those in the order in which they're received. You can't pay to expedite your request. But they have said they're going to keep in mind in their work order of how they're managing their workload, whether a registered tax period ends earlier than other taxpayers who are in that queue to have their registration number issued. All of this really means is that taxpayers need to make sure that they pre-file as early as possible and they maintain the proof of pre-filing, because it could take some time to get that registration number. And it's possible that the tax returns are actually going to be due before you get that number. And you want to make sure you have the right records to support that you've submitted the information necessary.
Which makes perfect sense. So wrapping up, it sounds like 2024 is off to a busy start in terms of these projects being registered on the portal. We're seeing in our own practice a pickup in the transactional space, folks buying and selling these credits. We're getting questions from broker dealers in terms of platforms and how platforms work in this space. So it's going to be an exciting year for us.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it.